I guess it's about 4 o'clock, and maybe some folks will come in and join us, and I do appreciate those of you who took the time to come to 4 o'clock session this afternoon, so that we're not totally alone with nothing but crickets. My name is Will Aycock, and I'm the General Manager of Greenlight Community Broadband in Wilson, North Carolina. And this is Gene Scott, who is our outside plant engineer. And we're going to talk to you today really about deploying fiber networks, specifically in support of municipalities today, or local government agencies. Do want to cover a little bit at the beginning about who we are, but understand we're pretty unique in some of what we do. But I cannot start this without having a completely shameless and unadulterated promotion for our community, which is that we are the first gigabit city in North Carolina. Back in January, the chairman of the FCC did issue a challenge to all the mayors of the United States, and that challenge was for every state to have a gigabit city no later than 2015. And we did respond to the challenge, as we already had our fiber to the home network in place. Went ahead and made our upgrades, and we actually have, although the service is not fully launched across all of our residential customers, we do have active gig OTTs in residential settings in Wilson. We just finished that up. So, you know, we're proud as a particular distinction. A little bit more background, and then I'll stop talking about, you know, the broadband services we provide. But for those of you who do not know, we have been in operation since 2008, so we're 5 years old as a service provider. We have 6,300 active customers across the community in Wilson, and that includes every possibly imaginable type of institution: large industrial, pharmaceutical manufacturing, banking, residential customers, school system, all the other government agencies. We're providing services across the board. And we are, as probably everyone does know, 100% owned and operated by the city of Wilson, North Carolina, so we're just operating the department of the city. So given all that, many of you may be thinking, well, this is pointless because nobody else in North Carolina can do what you've done in Wilson. And there is some truth to that. And you're going to hear me stop talking about all of our external services from this point forward. Everybody knows, most people know there was House Bill 129, made it illegal for most everybody else in here to provide telecommunication services, you know, other than or to residents or businesses in your community. All right. But that said, it does not end the value of community-owned fiber optic networks by any stretch of the imagination. For one thing, obviously, there's no prohibition on anyone building fiber for their own internal purposes. There is no prohibition on providing services to other government entities, from my understanding. Let me also say, I'm not a lawyer. Understanding, okay? You can build it for yourself. You can support other government agencies, and there's a possibility of being able to provide dark fiber and supporting community goals. Always there. We're not the lawyers.
Did HB 129 come out after you guys implemented?
Yep, it did indeed. Curious.
That was because of you guys, right?
Yeah.
A couple other players.
Yeah, there were a few of us that were involved. We'll just put it that way. So, in light of all this, what are the benefits? Why would we still want to do this? Why do we still want to build fiber optic networks to support these local government agencies? The first one is just purely financial. You can see reduced operational expenditures on a monthly basis by owning your own fiber optic network. Today, you're all, or many of you, I don't know, I know a lot of people have built some level of fiber, but many of you are paying some incumbent provider in your community for last mile connectivity. And depending on where you are and the nature of the competition in that market, you might be paying them a whole lot for a little bit of service. So today, there's already monthly expenditures on the books that you can see savings from. Very, very importantly, your needs are growing. Your demand for bandwidth is only going to get larger. And if you do not have a means of providing the service for yourself, every time you need to scale up bandwidth for a site, you know what's going to happen. Cost is going to go up. And so you're just going to have this escalating cost of being able to provide the services internally, as opposed to potentially owning the network and avoiding many of those costs. And of course, as we related to that is the need to be scaled. You don't need to be beholden to someone else to say, well, now I've got to plan for a budget for next year to go from 10 meg to 100 meg in this facility. When we all know that piece of equipment that's sitting over there, it can already probably provide a gig. And all they've got to do is dial it up. But if you don't have the funding, you're going to wait 12 months to dial up that connectivity. Also really important is expanding the services you're able to provide and support your organization. This morning I sat in on the the leadership role of the CIO session that was done. It's all about the need to evolve, to do new things, to be transformative in how you're leading technology in your organization. And I think it's really important. One of the things they touched on is you got to get outside the walls of where you've always been, and I believe in that. I believe for internal, local government, IT to continue to be relevant in the long term, you're going to have to do some new things. And I think that being able to reach out into the community and have these network assets is a big part of that. For example, video surveillance. We're doing that all over Wilson right now, and it's a great benefit. Yeah, you might be able to use an incumbent's network, provide some of this video surveillance, but can you move a camera from point to point anywhere in the community on an hour's notice to support law enforcement? Do you have that degree of flexibility? Having a municipal fiber optic network deployed has given us that degree of flexibility and responsiveness to support our law enforcement folks. Field access. Clearly, we're rolling wireless out in many areas of the community, but also we have the ability to go out with our mobile emergency operations trailer, which is a mobile command center for police and fire, and we can just jack that into the fiber optic network anywhere in Wilson that you actually, anywhere in Wilson, so we have the fiber everywhere. But in examples for you guys, anywhere you had fiber, you can provide that essentially limitless bandwidth capacity to your public safety folks anywhere you had fiber that they needed to jack in. Video training, being able to do the remote training in between fire stations, between different facilities. In Wilson, we've got more than 40 or 50 occupied facilities and hundreds of unoccupied assets across our community that the city owns. To be able to connect to all those. Critically inside of the utility environment, being able to do SCADA across the fiber network. Most SCADA systems out there now, you've got some type of radio, RTU, that's handling the communication. Maybe you also have some other type of backup, but there's some reliability issues. And so by having this fiber optic network deployed out to all the assets in your utility networks, you have more reliable control of those assets. And then also it supports AMI, so automated meter infrastructure, that two-way reading, communication, control with the meters. Right now we're doing it for our large industrial customers, but of course we're also looking at a pilot to expand that out to all the utilities, residential users, and so on and so forth. But again, the point is that it gives you better capacity to innovate because you now control these networks out across your community. One other thing, this bottom right-hand picture here, this is our Unified Communications Center. So under the umbrella of our green light operation, we have collapsed all non-public safety dispatch in the city of Wilson. So if it's not basically police and fire, it's all coming into our green light call center. Because originally, if you're going to have a broadband network, you're going to have a NOC, Network Operations Center. It's a 24/7, 365 operation, so it made sense from the efficiency perspective to then drop all non-public safety dispatch into that room. And what I'll say here is that the vision we have when we started down the path of setting up this UCC is the fiber optic network is like a nervous system that reaches out across our community. The head end is the brains. Well, the head end and the UCC together. So we have this fiber optic network connected to cameras and monitors and generators and anything imaginable, and it's collecting all this information back into our control center. And from that control center, we have what we call technical service reps who are there to process all the data the nervous system is bringing back in, respond to it, dispatch people out to address things, and try to be more proactive. Because I think when people talk too about smart city, this is part of what we're talking about. There's a lot of what we're talking about actually. Being able to have that real-time awareness across your jurisdiction, your service territory, what's going on, and having somebody there to respond to it and be proactive. And it's something that we have certainly seen a lot of benefit out of too, because now we're crossing all the boundaries inside of our organization. So you don't have utility dispatch, network operations center, and public works dispatch. You got all those people cross-trained in one room. And now when a broadband person sees an ONT go offline on the side of a house or a commercial account, well, the guy who happens to be handling utilities at that moment is saying, oh yeah, this recloser just opened up. And so we're saving across the board in every department because of that overlap and because of that real-time information.
In your knock, are you also monitoring your fiber?
Yes.
connections?
We monitor basically all the utility systems through our SCADA and our limited AMI. And then, because of the nature of the fiber network and the equipment deployed, we get real-time communication back from all of that in the NOC.
So your folks are also taking trouble reports?
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
They do three functions. They monitor, they dispatch, and they handle customer calls. So, that's pretty much what's going on around the clock in that room. Yes, ma'am. So other benefits of building a fiber network is that you can, again, check with your attorneys, but I believe you can support other government agencies. Certainly we're doing it. We are providing services to all the towns in Wilson County. We built a network to support Wilson County schools, and then off of that network supporting Wilson County schools, we're providing internet access to all the town halls and the satellite municipalities around there. As part of that, we're also providing service to all the volunteer fire departments that we pass going out there, all the library branches throughout the county, so you can begin to expand the benefits of the fiber optic network beyond your organization and interconnect other agencies in your area. I'll also say quickly that the libraries has been extremely beneficial. We have a lot of folks who don't have internet access in various areas, and they're able to come into the libraries and do job training, to apply online for jobs, and we've gotten great response back from the library folks about how much it's helped them improve their services. And then that kind of leads into another reason you might want to have a municipal broadband network, which is trying to work towards addressing larger community goals. And the digital divide is an issue, and it's an issue that having fiber is not going to address by itself, but it can help you down that path. Now, I will say that we have a unique advantage here because we're able to provide residential services. We can help keep costs low in our community, which can help directly impact that. That's not an option that's open to everybody else. But still, providing those services into libraries where people can gain access can help with that. Providing wireless can help with that if you strategically deploy wireless. I think Eric has some ideas too about how municipalities can leverage some of these things to address this issue, which is a critical issue. Because clearly, I'm getting outside of my area of expertise, but we all know that you need to be technically literate in order to be successful in today's world. And however we go about trying to help that issue, I think is important for all society. Again, that's just Will's opinion. So try to separate out opinion and stuff that's more factual. Economic development, another great reason to build fiber. A specific example for us, we had a large pharmaceutical manufacturer in our community who found out they were under the impression they had proper redundancy at their facility until a tornado came through, because they had multiple providers and they were like, yeah, we're redundant. And the tornado came through, and then of course everybody realized, oh, all the providers in Wilson are riding the same last mile network because there's only one network built by one company. So it took them down. They were contemplating a multi-million-dollar construction project to address their lack of redundancy. They luckily called us, and we said, well, there's really no need for you to go and build fiber yourself because we can provide routes anywhere you want. You draw on a map, for all intents and purposes, how you want the connectivity to your facility, and we're able to provide that. And I can certainly tell you it was a much, much lower cost than spending millions of dollars in a capital construction project. And that's just one example. I mean, we are supporting pretty much all the major employers in Wilson. And then again, another example of why you want to do this is the wireless. I had never realized this until I started partnering with our Parks and Rec folks. We have a beautiful athletic complex in Wilson. Soccer, Little League Baseball, we have tournaments from everywhere coming into this facility. But most of the big-time tournaments have specific technology requirements. And you're not going to get them to come no matter how great your fields are if you don't also have the technology infrastructure there. And it would actually work out beautifully, and this was about 3 years ago. The director of Parks and Rec said, we're trying to get this tournament, but we don't have requirements. Well, of course, he said, well, give us a number. And he went up there and throw it up. And that's not, that's not a terrible exaggeration. You know, it's all stuff that's on the shelf, the fiber's already out there, you know, plug it up. And then what's been cool every year is to see as the tournaments come through, their needs evolve. So at first they're like, well, we just need it here in this facility for the scores. And then we want it down the sidelines so that refs and coaches can have access. And now we want it everywhere. So their demands as people managing these tournaments are evolving every year. And it's not going to be long, you know, they're going to say, and we also want the square reader up front because we're going to take payments at the gate using that too. So what I've tried to do is just to kind of help you see why you still might be pertinent to want to build municipal fiber. And now what we're going to do, I believe, is turn it over to Gene, our outside plant engineer, and he's going to give you a lot more real information about how you would do it if you wanted to.
Now, up front, I want to tell you, I'm not going to try to teach everyone in here how to build the outside plant portion of a fiber optic network, because simply I couldn't do it in this amount of time. But what I want to do is to plant the seed with you of some of the things you need to be thinking about and thought processes to go through. And a lot of it's going to seem very simple and very small, but I can promise you the simple, small stuff will come back to bite you later and cost you a lot of money to fix. Just a few design considerations to begin with. Of course, you want maximum flexibility in your outside plant. Before you go, Gene, all I want to do is really connect my office buildings, my fire stations. I probably only need maybe a 12 or 24 strand. What's hard about that? I can promise you before, because I've got some friends in here already laughing about it, before you can get it built, Parks and Rec guy's going to call you. I hear you guys are putting out fiber. Can you connect my park? And before you can get that done, you're going to have the public library system calling you going, hey, can you connect my main library branch to some of the remote branches that we've got? And the next thing you know, halfway through the process, we haven't even got it spliced yet, you're already in the hole. So keep that in mind, maximum flexibility. Minimum capex, well, that sounds easy enough. Who wants to spend more money than they really need to? Again, think it through about what do you want your network to be able to do. Because to have to overbuild a network is extremely expensive. It's much cheaper if you can build it up front first time. Ease of maintenance, low cost. What's the big deal about that? There are a lot of different factors you need to think about. How are you going to maintain your network? You go, well, fiber optic cable gives a lot less trouble than any copper conductor, right? It does. But it will need maintenance from time to time. The simple things. You know, say you're going to have your feeder cable come to a major intersection in your town. You know, put your splice case right there at the pole at the intersection. You're going to fan three directions. Okay, a little bit later, how are you guys going to work on it? Are you going to block 4 lanes of traffic? How are they going to pull off? What happens on Christmas Eve when the drunk hits that particular pole and takes out the feeder going 3 separate directions? When all you really had to do is think about it a minute ago, you know, if I move one span, which is typically about 200 feet back, I can get them away from the intersection, and I'll be able to set my splice trailer up and work on the cable. Simple stuff. Give you some examples. When we build our network, you're going to think about what happens if I have a storm. A cable gets torn in two. I want to make sure I've got enough slack where I don't have to replace 2,000 feet of cable. I can only, maybe 400 or 500 feet is all I have to replace. So you think about that. Well, a car accident, clips the pole, tears it down. Well, if you build some slack into the cable so it's got some give, and we've had this happen, drop the pole on the ground, the cable breaks loose from its loops, it falls, and never loses circuit. You think all these little small things through. We finished our network in 08, turned it up. In January of 2010, we had a first little ice storm at Wilson. And of course, I held my breath, but my job would be to put it all back together. Well, got through it, no problem. Then, I think Will mentioned we had a tornado come through. That was in April of 2011. Yeah, April of 2011. It destroyed a major intersection in Wilson. Tore down probably half a block of power poles. I mean, threw them on the ground. Threw 288 fiber feeder cables we had on the ground. Our cables lost very few circuits. They were on the ground and still working. We had enough give in them. Of course, you know, I got a guardian danger too, I'm sure, but continue to work. Then, August of 2011, Hurricane Irene came through our community. I'm sure it came through some of yours. Will and I were working through the storm. We were seeing the alarms come through, and you're going, oh man, I hope the network survives. As soon as the storm cleared, Will and I went out in the field, and we saw trees across the cable. But we built enough into the cable where they gave, and we did not lose a single circuit. We had some service drops, houses come down. That was simple. Of course, we've had an automobile accident or two. But can anybody in here give me a guess of what has caused the most problem for us?
Squirrels.
You guys, okay.
They've heard it before.
You've heard it before. A 10-cent squirrel. Now, you're thinking about storms, you're thinking about wrecks, you're thinking about how my men going to work on the cable, but you got a squirrel that, in fact, last night, 9 o'clock, my operations supervisor called me, and the squirrel had chewed through a service drop for a house. But he, of course, picked one in a back alley that you can't get a truck to, so the guys had to actually put the poles to fix it. I can promise you there's squirrels out there right now that are excited about you building a fiber optic network. I can promise it. I have literally seen squirrels in Wilson. I worked most of my career there. I was with a major telco for a while. I had a technician call me. He wanted to show me squirrel damage on a piece of cable. I went up the ladder. I was looking at it. I had a squirrel come out of a tree, hit the cable, go over my head, get just out of reach, chewed on it, and ran like he said, what are you going to do about it, buddy? Well, there are products out there, and if you decide to build, if there are things that are acceptable to use, we've got a squirrel repellent, doesn't hurt the squirrel, that you can use on your cable. I don't recommend the squirrel guard shields, because they'll just chew through that and get the cable anyway. But it's the small stuff that you got to think about. Acceptable appearance to the public. If you guys are going to do this, say you go into a buried area in particular, you got several choices. You can use above ground splice beds, for example, or you can use at-grade vaults. We use at-grade vaults because the public, when he comes out his front door, doesn't want to see another pedestal in his yard. Now, I realize you guys will be building distribution networks at this point, but you may get some of this from your corporate customers, or even aesthetics where on your city facilities. The only thing to keep in mind is car jumps the curb, right? Clips the pad off, and now you've got 3 blocks just run out. Below ground, you can't get to it. Of course, my phone's not ringing at this point. Design considerations for that you want to think about. What are you going to serve? We touched on it before. Is it just city facilities, or are you going to serve your libraries? You want to serve, if you have your own power distribution systems, are you going to serve your substations? Are you going to pick up your water and sewer treatment plants and other places you want to monitor? You guys, some of you may have your own gas distribution system. We do, and we want to monitor those points. What I would do is lay out the territory that I'm thinking about covering with my fiber optic network, and I'll start plotting these points around. Don't worry about how you're going to connect them yet. Just plot them. Get them on the map. Other government entities, we just touched on that. Maybe county offices. The county may want to partner with you and have their office buildings connected with you. Provide dark fiber or transport for other community uses. Any future uses of your network. What future uses? Well, maybe you want to put out Wi-Fi networks, security cameras for your police. There's probably just an unlimited number of uses that you can add. I'd plot all these points on a map, but don't worry about connecting them at that point. Who owns electrical distribution system in your community? Wilson owns its own electrical distribution system. We're quite fortunate. Many of you guys that buy from co-ops or buy from Duke Progress, that adds a whole new complexity to it. What is your existing agreements with these for pole attachments if you don't own your poles? Do you have something in place? Some cities already or municipalities already have agreements with these power providers and the other telcos to use poles. Some don't. But research says because this can be a major stumbling block for you and it can take a lot of time to overcome. If you don't own your poles, what about the amount of make ready you're gonna have for aerial facilities? And you go, well, what's make ready? Well, you apply, say, with Duke Progress, for example. Tell them which poles you want to attach to, they're gonna go out and do a field survey. And they're gonna tell you, well, I want you at 22 foot 6 inches exactly. And believe me, guys, they say 22 foot 6 inches, they mean 22 foot 6 inches. I've had to move one for 1 inch. So they'll catch you when you fudge. But they're also gonna charge you for that work. And when you're in the budget planning process, and you know you don't own the poles, and you don't have an agreement that allows you to attach without going through the pole permitting process, how would you like to find that's gonna cost you an extra $20,000, $30,000, or $50,000 to make it before you ever get started on the project? Because you have to add that into your budget, obviously. And I'm not exaggerating about these figures, but depending on the size of your project, one like ours, if we had not owned the power distribution system, probably would have cost $250,000 to make it work. And that's before you attach wood. That's just to move street lights and electrical cables, lubricants, change out poles, and that type of thing. The time frame that you want your first service to be turned up. Sometimes, once you find out you're going to build a fiber optic network and some of your other departments find out about it, all of a sudden they're in a crisis and they need you to hook it up right now, right? Okay, got an aerial pole line. It's going to take you 4 to 6 months to get permission, or you can bury it. This is another factor to look at. You can bury it, you own the right of ways, you do it much quicker. This is going to cost you. Terrain considerations. Are you high density urban? Are you open suburban? By open suburban, I mean you get out in the suburbs and areas where you don't have a lot of density, the lots are a little bit larger, that type of thing. Are you a rural community? Width of your right-of-ways. You go, well, what's that got to do with it? Well, if your right-of-way width is, say, 10 feet behind the curb, and you already got a gas line, phone companies there, cable TVs there, and maybe even water sewer, then that's going to slow your progress down. It's going to mean a lot more handwork in terms of working around this. It's going to run your cost up. That's something you need to think about. Areas of the state, are you in coastal, Piedmont, or mountain areas? What difference? Obviously, storms. You live down here, you've got to take into account, you guys are going to get storms down on the coast, right? You may not want to put it aerial even if you own your own power distribution system. Piedmont or mountain areas, soil conditions are something you look at, plus now you're dealing with ice storms. Soil type, sand, rock, etc. You got sandy soil, great, you can plow through there. You got rocky soil, you're gonna find out you get down about 12, 14 inches, you from an area with a lot of rock.
We found rock in Durham.
Okay, you go down, you can't plow a lot of times, because you look, you can say, well, I can dig a hole. You can dig a hole big enough to plant a bush. But you can't put the cable very deep because you run into rock. So you wind up having a rock board. Well, how much is rock board? Well, it could cost you $15 to $18 a foot. So you have to take that into account. And by the way, when I give you some of the number figures, the disclaimer is they change in terms of how hungry your contractors are. But I just want you to have an idea. All right, you get construction in progress. Crew supervision. You go, well, Gene, I'm going to contract this out. What do I got to worry about crew supervision for? I would encourage you, if at all possible, that you have a city representative that at least basically understands construction process to be on site with the crews. If you don't have anybody like that, hire someone that's your applicant. And I don't mean contractors are bad. It's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is to have a representative in the field with these crews is going to save you money in the long run. We started our construction in Wilson. I specified our distribution network was to be 24 inches deep and no less. So, and I also hired an individual who used to be in charge of our electrical distribution system. He had retired to come back and watch the crews. Well, sure enough, he got out there. He found one that had buried at 23 inches. You have to know this individual. He made them dig it up and rebury it. He had a stick that was marked exactly 24 inches, and when he pushed it down, if he didn't clear the topsoil, they had to redo it. He He came back in the office, told me what he did. He said, Gene, you do that about twice. Word gets around, you won't have any more problems. Because they had to rebury it at their cost. But you needed someone to represent you in the field. Now, this could be your engineer. If you have a contract engineering firm that's going to help you, or somebody in-house, please make sure that they understand they need to make visits to the field and work with the crews. One of the complaints that I get commonly from contract crews that work in other areas, they get a set of prints. Number one, prints may be so congested or unclear that it's hard for them to figure out what it is they want done. Now, I'm not saying the crews are dumb. You have to see some of the construction prints that they work with. So they'll call an engineer, and the engineer say, just build it the way I've got it, because he doesn't want to come out. And what happens is the crew goes where they're pressuring me to get it done, so they start the construction process, and it may not be what you want. And then that runs into more money. It also helps you with invoice review. We reviewed at the end of each week every invoice that came in, and we bounced that off of what the crew supervisor was telling me, and I'm talking about crew supervision that was representing us, that had actually been built. So if I saw an invoice that said we built 8 miles of fiber cable this week, he told me we only built 5.5 miles, guess what? We didn't sign that. Send it back. And by the way, you do that once, and you don't usually have any problems either. One thing before I touch on this, after you've got those points plotted on your map, then start to lay out and connect them using your backbone facility. Now, when you connect these dots, it's probably going to be impossible for you to go from dot to dot. You're going to have to get close to them. You may not be able to go, say, down a side street, for example. What you want to do is keep your distribution on your drop facility as short as possible. But if you're building your backbone, and then you've got to go and build thousands of feet of distribution network or drop plant to get to it, it runs your cost up. So just try to keep that simple. But you get your network complete, now what? Who's going to locate your buried facilities for you? This is actually something that I've heard from other areas that go, well, we ain't thought about that. Well, you'll think about it when somebody calls in a locate, doesn't get located, and it gets cut, and then your fire chief calls you up and says, you know, we just lost communication, station 3. So who's going to do the locates? You may be simple. You got your own water distribution system or gas. One of those guys, it's a simple process for him to learn how to locate fiber. But just make sure you thought that through. And there are contract companies you can use. General maintenance. Who's going to repair the damage to the aerial buried plant? Okay, you got it built, and it's going to get damaged. And that squirrel's going to work on it for you on a Sunday afternoon. Who's going to go put it back together for you? You got somebody in-house that's going to do it? You can do this, great. And you've got a contract agreement with somebody that can show up in a reasonable amount of time. It's just something you need to think about. You don't want to have a contract that the guy says, well, I can get to you the 3rd week of July. It doesn't do you any good if you're out now. Just think that through. If you're going to do it in-house, do you have the proper equipment? Fusion splicing machine, for example, can run you $12,000, $13,000 for a DVD. Now, there are other models out there. I've got some that are small, we use for individual fiber splices that are about $8,000. But whether it's $8,000 or $13,000, that's a lot of money. Do you have the test equipment? If you do, and you've got the volume to support it, that's great. If not, you need to think about that. You're going to make additions to the network. Who's going to design and construct and splice it to it? Again, are you going to train people in-house? If you do, that's great. I'm a firm believer in having in-house personnel, but we have a network large enough to support that. But just think this through. And this needs to be thought through before the network's ever turned up. Records, records, records. You got a clean sheet of paper. If you've not started on your network yet, everything's clean, brand new. You've got to have accurate records of the items of plant and field. Size of your fiber cable, what type it is. It's a strand and lash cable, is an ADSS cable. Strand and lash, basically what you've seen traditionally in cable TV companies use. ADSS is what we used a lot in Wilson, but it's an all dielectric self-supporting cable. But there is differences in the two types of cable. The glass is the same thing. But what type of plant do you have? You have conduits in the ground already. How many conduits? What are the diameters? What's in those conduits? Can you pull another cable through there? Your splice points. Where are your splice points located? What size closures are there? You know, what difference does that make? Well, you have a damage, be able to look at your records and say, okay, we need a splice closure that's big enough to handle 288 fiber splice, for example. Very, very important. You need accurate records of all your fiber strands. Where are these strands terminated and what do they serve? Will mentioned, and I did too, about the tornadoes that came through. We had to rebuild one splice. Thankfully, a lot of the circuits did not go down. But by having records, we knew what we would need to put back together first. Record keeping should be uniform. What does that mean? Well, it doesn't do a lot of good, guys, if on this particular little project, somebody drew it out on a piece of paper with crayons and colored pencils, and they folded it up, put it in a drawer. The next guy that did something, put it on an Excel spreadsheet. He understands it, but he doesn't understand what the first guy did. You want to be able to have uniform records where any of your crew or any of your staff can look at and determine what they've got and what it does. One source for all records is preferred, and what I just said a minute ago, why do you want to go to multiple places to gather the information you need to manage your outside plant network? I mean, you want to have to go to 3 different file cabinets and a map drawer, put together a puzzle to determine what you've got in the field, and the whole time somebody's screaming, how long before you get it back working for you? And I'd already touched on this. I apologize, I got a slide out of place here. But this is basically when I was talking to you about the map and being able to connect the points. A couple other things though. You want to sum up the total locations to be served, and that may tell you, well, I need a 144 fiber cable. Don't forget, you want maintenance spares in there too. What's a maintenance spare? Well, fibers will break. Doesn't happen often, but it can break. Or you get the squirrel that chews through the top and breaks a couple of working ones but doesn't damage the rest. You'll be able to send a crew out at night. That's when service goes down. Roll those fibers to your maintenance spares, get the customer back up, and then in daylight you can go back and fix it. But you have to take into account maintenance spares, and I would recommend at least 10% when you finish these maintenance spares. That's a judgment call. Somebody else may tell you 12%, somebody else may say 5%. 10's a good number. Future unknown demand. Again, I think with fiber optics, we don't even know yet what services are going to be needed 5 years, 10 years from now. This plant's going to last a long time. Be sure to design it large enough to handle what your needs are going to be. And this was just a strand, I mentioned to you a second ago, strand and lash and ADSS cable. Okay, buried construction methods. Let me touch on this because if you contract it out, your contractors are going to come to you and they'll talk about, well, I'm going to do a directional drill, I'm going to do a mole bore, I'm going to plow it, or I'm going to open trench it. With a directional drill, you can control the depth and you have a minimum disruption in your service. Basically, that drill goes underground and you can break it come up several hundred feet away. So you don't tear up somebody's property. The downside of it is very expensive. Directional drill may run you $8.50 to $12, $13 per foot. The other problem with a directional drill is you need space to be able to set it up. It's a big machine, and you can't work it in a tight location. So that's a consideration. Mole bore. Some people refer to them as missile bores. Anybody have a water department that's used those before? Have you ever seen one operate? Steve has. Mole bore, it basically looks like a missile. It's about 3 feet long, silver. You get them in different sizes, 1.5 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch. You dig a pit, you drop it in, and it's worked by compressed air, and it basically taps itself. You'll hear it pumping. Some contractors refer to it as a pumper. It'll pump along, and you'll usually be able to shoot, say, from me to the wall, and then you have to dig another pit and drop one in again. The disadvantage to this is you can't control it once you turn it loose. You can turn it on and off. So you don't want to try a long shot with it because it will hit something underground and it will start to bury, and you think you're going straight to that wall and you wind up hitting that door. So experienced crew can be very good at it, but they're basically for shorter distances. Trenching, obviously, everybody's seen a trencher operate. You can open up a big trench, you can drop large facilities in it, large pipelines, et cetera. Fiber optics are small, so trenching is not necessarily always necessary. Plowing is the least expensive method. Has anybody ever seen cable plow operate? It basically sews the cable in the ground. And of course, you can also place a pipe up to 2 inches. It vibrates, basically breaks the ground up, and leaves a very small disruption. It's the least expensive. It's probably a third of the cost of a directional drill, but your problem with it is 24 to 36 inches is about the most that you can do with it. Get deeper than that, plow usually doesn't operate. One thing we have not done in Wilson yet, but we've been looking at is microfiber. They now have fiber cable, 96 strands will be smaller than your little finger. And you would be able, in an urban environment or a downtown area, literally cut the sidewalk with a sidewalk saw or cement saw, drop a microduct in, which is not much bigger than a drinking straw, and blow this cable through it. So that's just another option you may want to explore if you're going to do a downtown or very dense area. It does require special equipment to blow the fiber. You cannot pull it. Pull it, it'll pull in two. It's a trade-off. They were able to get it very small. It uses the same glass, by the way, as any of the other cable. But the sheath is delicate, and the buffer tubes inside are very delicate. So you can't put a lot of tension on it. You really have to blow it. And we've just talked about a few minutes ago whether you want to use at-ground vaults or above-ground splices or access points. I recommend place cable in pipe. You can direct bury it. You can save the price of the pipe. Pipe may run you 38 to 44 cents a foot extra. But with it, you've got added protection. If the cable were ever to go bad and or you wanted to replace it in the future with a larger one, pull out the old one, pull the new one in, you don't have the cost, expense, and disruption of digging it in again. Everything we have in Wilson's in pipe right up to the side of the house. And that was a conscious decision we made, even though it cost a little bit. Splicing methods, fusion splicing. It's a very high quality splice, requires experienced splicing technician and a fusion splicing machine. Machines I just mentioned a little while ago can be quite expensive. And in Wilson, we've been very fortunate. The splicing supervisor we have has got over 30 years of experience. He used to work for AT&T when they built their long haul network in the late 70s and early 80s. He knows what he's doing. He can make these things sing. But again, machines are expensive and it requires a trained individual to be able to do it. Mechanical splices, they're quick and relatively inexpensive. The loss may be higher. When you start to talk to vendors about how to build a network, what products they have, right now I hear a lot about mechanical splicing. Basically, mechanical splicing is like a sleeve. It's got an index matching gel inside. Two fibers slide into the sleeve, and they match up. And theoretically, you don't have any light loss. It works great. It works great until it's 10 years old, and because of traffic vibrations and other issues, it starts to pull apart. And the splicing supervisor that I've got can literally see it on OTDR. He can tell you what's a fusion splice, what's a mechanical splice by the way you see a blip in the machine.
Gene's very humble, so he wouldn't tell you all this, but I will on his behalf. And this is something that will save you a bunch of money in the long run. Most of the gear that we have deployed is rated by the manufacturer to reach about 8.5 miles. That's what they have in their specifications. We're pushing services about 17 miles on gear that's rated for services out to 8.5 miles. Call the manufacturer and say, hey, your specs are no good. Why is this? And their response is because they spec all their equipment to the lowest common denominator of typical splice loss they see to include these mechanical splices. If you have extremely high quality fusion splices out there, you have much less loss and you can push the signal much further, which for us meant we were able to serve a much larger area in Wilson than what we thought we could serve based on what the manufacturer has saved us tremendous money as we've expanded. So, I mean, it's an important thing to focus on.
And we're very proud of it. Again, you'll hear somebody say, well, I've used mechanical splicing and it's worked fine. Ask them, how long has it been there? He says, well, I did it a year ago. I said, call me back in about 5 years and let me know how it's working. Okay.
This is me again.
Yeah.
So in any event, hopefully, we've done a decent job of showing that there's still some reason for municipalities to be interested in deploying fiber networks. And hopefully, I'm pretty confident Gene gave you a lot of good detailed information about stuff you ought to be thinking about if you're going to do this. So I'll just sort of reiterate that you got to afford to do it, and there's still opportunities there. And we've helped quite a few folks out, and typically what we are seeing is that there's a business case to be made by simply looking at your monthly expenditure on telecommunication services, and then compare that to the cost of potentially building a fiber network, and then start looking at keeping cash flow of the deployment of fiber by replacing one expense with another. Basically taking those funds and applying them to the maintenance and building out the network. And again, if you scale your bandwidth, those savings grow over time, and that's not going to be hard money in your pocket, obviously, because you're not spending it today, but it is something to help in that sales process. And we don't do it, but I'll also say that there are consultants out there who will sit down with you and help you go through that business process analysis that kind of figure out what would the payback look like by these savings versus the cost of building, and where would we come out. Also, another opportunity is demand aggregation amongst all the local agencies. If you can all get together in your immediate vicinity, everybody that you can logically hope to connect to your fiber network, and buy together, you're going to drive the cost down. And then either perhaps there's an opportunity for all those agencies to collaborate on building a fiber network, just depending on how things work in your area. If not, then perhaps one entity's going to build it, but they purchase in aggregate and can serve the other government agencies in that location, so that can help create a revenue stream to help support potentially the fiber optic network. And again, the portion of savings for all of the agencies should be invested in the network maintenance and upkeep over time. Now, this one's really important. It's really just another way of providing service to other government agencies, but I'll break it out specifically because the school systems are eligible for E-rate funding from the federal government. And that's money that's being extracted from local communities today on phone bills that are being paid in these local communities. So in Wilson and Durham and everywhere else, you have the subscriber line charges and USF fees and all that stuff. Well, that money goes into a big pot and gets, in part, distributed out to help provide services to schools and libraries. If you were able to provide services to the school system in your area, you can become an E-rate provider. We are an E-rate provider, so we get some of those dollars back into our community to help us support our fiber optic network. And that's a pretty big deal, and it's a pretty good source of revenue that I think anyone interested in having municipal fiber should really explore. Now, it's a competitive bid process, so if you want to do it, you got to go through the hoops of becoming an E-rate provider, and then they've got to put it out the bid, and you got to win the bid. I mean, it's got to be done in the proper way, but it is a tremendous opportunity to sort of help support municipal networks.
E-rate does pay for fiber, don't they?
Yes. When we did it, they would not pay for construction because we were just a little bit ahead of time, so to speak. But now I do understand they will help pay for construction as part of that. And again, a lot of this stuff is stuff that we do, but we don't really help others with. But if you have questions about it, we can put you in touch with people that have helped us along the way. So ask offline, and we can help with that process. But again, you're keeping that money in your local community. And then, of course, as I understand it, again, not official legal advice, just what we'll understand, there's an opportunity to provide dark fiber to leased assets. It's a little bit different than a telecommunication service in support of economic development efforts. So if you have fiber optic assets in your community, you're probably going to very quickly realize there's a demand. There's no shortage of people who can come talk to you and say, I want to simplify. That's not going to be your problem. It's just coming up with a strategy of getting it deployed. But that dark fiber is going to very likely be a revenue source. I think there are a lot of great examples in other parts of this country of municipalities who have started out sort of doing internal networks, building it in a very robust fashion, beginning to generate revenue through dark fiber arrangements with key institutions, and then they slowly grow the network over time. And I would encourage other people to kind of look at that model that has happened in other parts of the country as something that's still viable here. And of course, if you think about it, the businesses that have multiple locations in your community, they're all subject to all the same pressures we're talking about: bandwidth demand growth, the escalating costs of providing services. So even the smaller entities might want, if they've got multiple locations, they might want some dark fiber too, because they might want to avoid some of these costs that you want to avoid as an organization. So that's another way to look at it. So in conclusion, I certainly believe that municipalities can improve their service delivery and can help support other government agencies and can help to achieve overall goals in the community by deploying fiber networks. You don't have to provide telecommunication services that non-governmental agencies can get benefits if you're doing this. I think that's a very important point. A lot of you guys are already doing it. Imagine there's many of you in here who are already building some fiber. But one of the things that we do commonly see talking to folks is that they're building some fiber, but there may not be a comprehensive plan behind what they're doing. And that's really what we're probably advocating more for anything else is make sure you stop and thought through what your goals are. Because as it says here, if you establish clear goals for the network, make sure it's designed from day one to achieve your goals, and then roll it out in a phased fashion. You know, I believe everybody, all municipalities in North Carolina, can successfully deploy fiber networks for their community purposes. On the flip side, I mean, there is even in that some risk. If you don't do those things, you just go out and start deploying fiber. If you haven't made sure it's properly designed, and particularly don't have good records, you can end up in a very bad place. So another thing there is to encourage you to make sure you take the time to try to do it right, to learn from the many others in the state, not just us, who have already deployed fiber networks. Yes?
Will, would you share with us just a ballpark cost per mile that y'all saw?
Engineers hate questions like that.
Yeah, because it always comes back to what you said. Buried, probably gonna be looking at somewhere between $25,000 and $28,000 a mile. And the qualifier of this is, of course, what size cable you're gonna put in, how many ducts you're gonna put in, and the type of terrain you've got. Just somewhere in that range. Aerial, you're looking at, probably maybe 15,000 or so per mile, again, depending on the size. And that's not counting make ready costs. This is an assumption that you do with that separate.
But there's a lot of different, and this is just sort of an observation, there's a lot of different people that throw around a lot of different costs like that, and they are all over the place. And if you hear something that sounds much lower than what Gene just said, you're not including a turnkey product for you. You know, somebody, plenty of guys that, hey, I got a bucket truck, and I'll get a reel of cable, and I'll go from there to there. But that's, you know, that's not deploying a quality fiber optic network that you want for your municipality. And I think there's a lot of confusion because of that, because there are plenty of firms out there, and there, even in the private sector, you get that, you know, Billy Bob's fiber splicing service, and I'll run it from here to there, cost you $1. And then people who say it costs $70,000 or $100,000 for a mile of cable, which is also what depending on the terrain.
Depending on the terrain, whether you're gonna plow it, directional board. So it could, I mean, you could even, I don't know what area of the state you live in, for example. Raleigh. In Raleigh, you're gonna bury it, you're gonna do a lot more, I'm gonna assume it's probably closer into the downtown area. You're gonna probably do a lot more directional bore. You may actually go as high as $45,000 to $50,000 a mile. I don't wanna scare anybody, but I'm working off the top of my head, which is dangerous at my age.
But, you know,
it can vary, and I'd be glad that if you had a specific area, you shot me a note, I could give you a little bit tighter. Not exact.
yes, sir.
If you had make label killed us, a person did 9 buildings, you had to 3 miles apart. These are local vendors, they did it for almost nothing, it's the whole fiber they had. The make label almost 70 of them make it.
Well,
That's the expenses. Roxborough, it is all lots, nobody does it. That's what it is.
Your implementation, how much is marine, how much is aerial?
it's a 55% aerial, roughly 45% area.
You know, what we did, was basically match the utility. For obvious reasons, we matched the utility, because we own poles, or own utility infrastructure, but there's also a lot of wisdom, as I've talked to some of the folks that, you know, years gone by. Folks went the way they went for a reason, and you might want to think about that before you decide to go bury where they got here. There's usually some reasoning behind why infrastructure is the way it is in a given location.
You may have found rock. There's a 12-inch sewer line right under it. You want to get into something.
Will the Drew Electric guys hang you?
They did not during construction, they do assist us now.
Yeah, we built a little over 200 miles of plant in 18 months, and there was no way we could keep our electrical distribution system maintained and divert all those crews. So we had to contract that out.
We've already put about 4.5 miles of wire, and we've got to use electric utility as well, and electric guys are hanging, we own poles, so electric guys are hanging on power poles. So we're looking at right at 20,000.
And you're in a good position then too. You've got been able to use those crews to do that.
How'd y'all get your guys trained for your in-house staff? Were you able to find somebody, an entity really good to train them up in all the fiber installation and maintenance?
Actually, it's all in-house. And what I was able to do is I hired some key people, the splicing supervisor I told you about. He took care of training folks on the fiber splicing piece of it. The installation supervisor that I've got, he had 12, 13 years worth of experience. And he did a lot of the training for our installation technicians. So we were lucky. You hire some key people and they take care of training. And then what we're also doing now, we're doing in-house training to sharpen skills. Because I'll have a technician who's very, very good, for example, in setting up PCs and set-top boxes and that type of thing. And I'll have another technician who's very, very good at splicing. We're letting our technicians actually teach classes to their counterparts so that they share these skills. And we were surprised, well, I was surprised. The guys loved it. It's just kind of like getting recognized for being good in your piece, and you're helping share that knowledge with your coworker. He in turn is sharing his with you. And we've had a lot of good success with it. I also had a company come in and do some certification training with the splicers. I had AFL come in and do that. And that way they got a little external training on that end of it also. Well, there's several companies out there, Light Brigade, for example, does a good bit of training for fiber optic splicing, testing, installation. I've had I sent one group of 4, actually they had just, when I was hired, they had just gone. They had gone to the Light Brigade course and did some splicing.
And one thing that's not in the presentation, although I think it kind of is implied behind it, but I want to say explicitly, is that for local government IT folks, like I came from GIS to IT management into this, we're used to providing services. We're not usually that used to managing community assets. Really, really different things. So when you go to build it, you know, don't think about it in terms of connecting the fire station, or don't think about it only in terms of connecting the fire station and the substation and the generator in order to, you know, provide that service. Think about it in terms of an asset with very long-term value. And if you're going to go through the trouble of building it to maximize the potential return on the asset. And that needs to be how you're thinking about it. Because you're going to miss an opportunity. If you spend any money at all to build fiber and you design it just to provide those immediate services you have in your organization, you're missing a huge opportunity. And I just want to make sure everybody's thinking that way. If you're going to do it, think about it in those terms.
I was going to say that both you and Gene underscored, at least you underscored many times, when you're building this, never put those dots on the map. Who your partners are, potential customers, potential whatever.
You know, I heard the joke about somebody who said, you know, I've never been in a situation where having too much money was a problem. I can also say I've never been in a situation where having too much fiber was a problem. You're not going to one day wake up and go, gosh, I wish I didn't have those strands. You know, that's just not how it works.
You may have somebody come to you and say, well, you're in a bind, you don't have enough strands, we just use DWDM, we use multiplexing. Telcos have done that for decades between cities on their long haul network. Think about it. Do you want a large number of your customers and or your city facilities riding on 2 fiber strands? That would be the tool the squirrel cuts for you, and have 2/3 of your network go down at one time. Well, it's just a thought.
And I understand where the end, and we will literally talk about this forever because we do love what we do. So feel free to get up and go or whatever when you have other questions. We're still happy to see you talk and stuff. Well, if not, I was just
Did
saying.
you have any issues with the railroad? Or do you not have railroads?
Oh, we've got a railroad.
Yeah, we've got, what used to be Norfolk Southern comes through and CSX comes through. I won't say we had issues with the railroad, but the permitting process for crossing railroad, whether it's aerial or buried crossings, can take months. So you need to, it can take, when I first went to work in the late 70s, you could get a permit back from them in a couple of months. Now, 6 or 8 months is not uncommon. I don't know what happened. It looks like the same railroad track it did 35 years ago. But it cost a lot more money too. Used to I'm literally not exaggerating, $200, $300 is all it cost us to cross. Now I think the last one I did was, I want to say it was about $8 grand. So
When we did fiber in Durham, the IT director had been paying $100 a year for this right of way. He wasn't sure what it was. It was from railroad. So when we needed it, we had it.
well, that's good because
You're not gonna get it cheaper than that.
no, that was whoever did that was smart, because I bet you if you went from scratch, it'd cost you a lot more.
Yeah, it cost us, but we had to cross the railroad twice.
Yeah.
So we had to pay for the other one.
And railroads don't play, so get your permits, be nice to them. We found that generally particularly their local track masters, are pretty good at work, but it will take a while.
Yeah, we did. I think it took like 6 months.
Yeah.
Y'all have a rule of thumb about the minimum number of strands that you want?
That
Like
would,
you just go with 96?
no, well, I guess you could do that, but we actually look at what we're going to serve, plan for growth, look at the maintenance fair. So each area is actually looked at separately.
And I would encourage anybody, again, you know, we throw around all kinds of generalizations, but the big thing is design it. Really have it designed before you decide to do anything, and pay some money even to have somebody lay it out and design and tell you what it's really going to be. You'll be more satisfied in the long run.
But when you pay somebody to do that, be active with them, ask a lot of questions, and make sure they understand what you want, and you make sure that they are giving you what you ask for.
I've just seen enough of us working with Gene now, that some folks that call themselves engineers, and you get a print and it makes no sense. Don't think it's because you don't understand what's going on. It's because they don't understand. Good engineers will deliver a print to you that you can read, whoever you want.
And that was what I was alluding to about some of the prints that we've seen in the past. But they're so complicated that a crew supervisor can't figure out where you want to put the cable to and from. Then you open yourself up to, it's going to build something for you. If it's not right, and who's at fault? He's going, well, you gave me a set of prints, this is what I thought. You going to pay me to redo it? I called the engineer and he said, Bill, what was on the print? Just what I did, or at least what I thought I did. And so we try to use, and put the information on the prints that the crews need. Think of them as being a customer too. In fact, what we do is we issue separate sets of prints for different functions. The construction crew gets a set of prints that shows nothing but where I want to place the cable, point A to point B, where I want the slack loops. He doesn't care about the splicing. He doesn't care about any of the installation. So you don't clutter it up. He does his piece, he turns it back in, and do the as-built, we issue a splicing print. Splicing supervisor doesn't care about where the slack loops are at. He doesn't care about you know, what height we're gonna hang the cable, all that's already there. He wants to know which strands we need to splice to which strands, and that's what he does. And somebody might tell you, well, that takes a whole lot more time. It really doesn't. It's a matter of clicking on which layer you want to print when you print the prints. So, just a thought.
I did. Say for new developments, kind of, do you have a standard set of guidelines for the developers to say, hey, you know, you need to build to these specs as part of their new developments? Like a new subdivision is going in with, you know, 200 new homes. Do you hand them a list of requirements to say, you guys need to build this as part of the construction process?
Not yet, although that is a very good point. Some communities, I understand, have done that.
You gotta understand that there are a wide range of communities across the state too, in different places. And so, you know, some things that may be very appropriate in certain communities may not be appropriate.
And in your community, that may be very appropriate. You may want to explore it. Because it sure will make your life easier if you go ahead, say, and put your ductwork in for you.
How about even just for general build-out specs? We'll say right now, I'm in a time crunch because we're building a new trail through a neighborhood and there's potential to connect one side of towns together. And we haven't done a whole lot of fiber work. Most of our stuff has been outsourced or leased fiber.
Mhm.
And so we want to be able to throw this into the plans. And so is there a standard, I don't know, standard set of specs to go with? Say, hey, you know, 4-inch, you know, with 1-inch interducts or 6-inch or 2 4-inches. And I realize that's a loaded question.
There's not a standard set that say that you always place a 4-inch pipe, for example. Personally, I'll look at each individual scenario and try to come up with the best plan for that scenario. I take it you got like a park, maybe you're gonna build a walking trail. It's the shortest distance between point A and point B. You kind of like to drop something in the ground for future use.
Correct.
Yeah. You may go by with, 1 2-inch conduit with a bolt every 1,300 feet, for example. Of course, you need to make sure what type of, it's going to be